Hi everyone, it's Cora, and I am coming up to talk about refining the practice again. So in the past couple weeks, I have been coming up every Thursday and to talk a little bit about practice. In September, the theme was how to restart, right? Return to the mat. Yes, that's right. It's still how to return to the mat after a while. And the October, the theme now is going to be how to refine your practice. Last week, the talk was basically about to refine our practice, we need to think about what is important to us, right? So we talk about our core values, what we find our practice is important to us, both physically and also spiritually or emotionally. If you have missed the replay, it will be on Instagram, and you can watch that. So today is the second week of refine the practice. So last week when we talk about thinking about core values, what is important in our practice, and it's more on a broader view. And today I want to shrink it down into more micro, is to how in our practice every day to build what we call self-study. And in self-study, Sanskrit, in the yoga philosophy, is called svadhyaya. And self-study, in terms of self-study, it contains building self-awareness, which we know is like a crucial part of yoga. The power of yoga is not about learning poses, but more on through the asana practice to know more about ourselves, know more about our body, and then eventually also link into what our mind is thinking. Right, so self-awareness is the first part of self-study. With self-awareness, then we will build differentiations, or what we call discrimination, is to find the difference between things, right? Meaning that what works, what doesn't, and that is through experimenting, right? Trying different things. I will break it down in a sec. And then after that, while you find the self-awareness, which means knowing, and then differentiating, and the last bit is to really build the knowledge and wisdom, and that would basically be the path of the self-study. Going back, right, self-awareness. So how do we build self-awareness in the practice? Last week I talked about yoga and workout. There are times that we feel we go in and we work out, and then we walk out. So those are the times when I reflect on are times that we will just kind of go in and do a bunch of poses and walk out without a lot of questioning process, without really honing in into having self-awareness. We walk in, move, and walk out. So to build self-awareness in the practice, I invite you to check things, right? So meaning that when you get into the poses, you can see even checking whether my hands are even, whether they're in a great position or in a correct position. How does your body feel? Are my arms straight? Are my legs straight, right? So check on things. So that's how you build body awareness physically. And then emotionally would be, I can give an example. Which pose do I tend to get out faster than I need to, right? Or which pose do I go in last when teacher asks me to do handstand, right? Teacher teach handstand and everyone is up and you're still prepping your mat. I've seen that, right? And I've done that before too. Right, so those are self-awareness, right? Meaning that knowing about yourself, knowing something about yourself, either in the asana practice, right? Knowing about your body, even aches and pains, and then also your mind, right? What's your mind thinking? What do we feel more reluctant, right, or resistance? And notice without judgment, right? It's not easy. I think that's a hard practice, is to being aware and observe about our body, the tendencies, without judgment. And that takes practice. Now, the second part would be on discrimination. And discrimination is actually I should say differentiation, but that was the term that I studied with. It's called differentiation. Discrimination, which means like knowing the difference. So what is better, right? What is better? And finding we need to see the difference in order to know what is good for us, right? So I invite you to experiment with things, meaning that there is no one perfect pose, there's no one alignment, there's no one way to do things at the end. So there might be rules that are helpful, right? So there are rules that we follow as guidelines, but ultimately you need to figure out what works for you. And in yoga asanas, I think props is one of the great examples on how to experiment things. So they're not really there because we need them. It's because using the props sometimes can help us to differentiate what would be optimal for our body, right? So using a strap with a certain width, then we can get to the position where our body feels more balanced, right? And sometimes also using the props to highlight some of the more dull areas in the body, right? To help us to differentiate what is better, right? So that's the self-discrimination or self-differentiation. So you experiment with different things. So go back to step one, self-awareness, just notice and observe about your body, knowing yourself, the body, and also the fluctuation of the mind or the tendencies, right, on what you're thinking. And then is to experiment, right? And through experiment, then you can differentiate what is not good for you, what is good for you, and that's the self-discrimination bit. And then the lastly is wisdom, right? And the wisdom is really through the action. So you know about yourself, you know the difference, and then you have to take action, meaning that you got to do the thing, and which means doing the practice in order to incorporate the self-awareness and then finding difference, and then you put them together through action, and then it becomes the wisdom. And that bit on knowledge, I do encourage you to go deeper, meaning that spend some time if you're interested in something, or if you do have a question, you ask, or you go and find out, right? If there's something that the teacher says about, like say the tailbone or coccyx, if you just go and actually ask the teacher, I don't understand what you're talking about, I can explain that, right? Or go home and check out where is the coccyx, right? And that would help. That would help, because I think so often we're talking about refining practice here. So often we just kind of go in and just do it and walk out without really going a little bit deeper. Now, I know not all of us study yoga, right? But every class, if you just have like a little bit, one small thing that you go and look up or go ask, or being a little bit more curious about, then every day, little bit adds together, it goes a long way. And that's how I feel like refining practice is about. It's not about, okay, you know what, I'm gonna take 200 hours teacher training in order to refine my practice. That works too. But even day-to-day practice, I think there's a lot that we can do, tiny bit at a time, building self-awareness, experimenting things out. Don't think there's one way to do things, just try, right? Try this, try that, be curious and have fun. And then the last thing is like we really have to do the work. And this is a discipline, and spend a little bit of time in terms of finding a little bit more focus, whatever that interests you, really interests you. If you find something interesting, dig deep into it, ask questions, or go home and look up a video, right? I recently am dealing with some lower back pain, right? So while it is a challenge, it's also an opportunity for me to figure out, what can I do to release that? Then I go back and look, I go home and look into some of my books, and then and I get some more information and becoming more knowledgeable, and it's just really just that. So I hope this episode or this little talk helps you in your practice. And so today is Refine Your Practice episode 2, and is on self-study, svadhyaya. See you next week.